A little update on the Beaver. It's not a Beaver Rockwell, it's a Beaver table saw. CS. No, it's not a CS. It's just a plain 2200. But all the part numbers on this saw are CS numbers. So you got CS 2213 right there. I managed to get some other parts off this saw. And where is it? There it is. I got this off this one today. So this is a CS 2212. And I thought maybe behind this was some fresh paint that had never been seen the daylight. The daylight and faded, and there's no paint behind it. So that was... There's drive screws holding that on. 2 of them came out last time I was here. And then 2 would not budge. So I just soaked it with oil. I put lots of oil on it. And when I got here today, I just pushed this little screwdriver in there and twisted around, and they loosened up, grabbed it with these ugly pliers, and pulled them out. They kind of screw like a screw, but they look like a rivet, and it did a little damage there, but I think I can fix that. And yeah, so this saw originally had 3 panels like this, exactly the same size. 1 screw was left, and I think in this, no, not this panel here, someone had and the wheel, these wheels here go through, both of them go through these 2 panels, so they couldn't be lost. But this one must have been rattling around so badly that someone had gone out to the hardware store and bought 4 of these ugly screws, but bought the wrong size washers. Got like 1/4-inch washers. So I'll get the right stuff. We'll try and find some period correct screws like this. Number 8s it looks like. And then we'll paint these panels. I'm going to cut one more to match these 2. They're all 3 are exactly the same size. The one that's totally missing is the one with no hand crank or anything through there. It's just a big flat panel goes on here. Okay, so I've been soaking this for 2 weeks now. It's been 2 weeks since I've been here. Around 2 weeks. Last rainy day, what I do is come here when it's got rainy days, I'm not working. And I managed to get this. Before I left last time, I dropped this in a pail of oil, and I had it hanging off a bungee cord here so I could actually pull it out. A big, like 5-gallon pail of oil. So I pulled it out today. It's turning quite nicely, but I can still feel, just now I can feel the positions where the bearings were for probably, I'm going to guess 30 years, 40 years, maybe 50 years. This table saw might not have been used since the early 70s, maybe. So we got some dried up grease. This is brass, by the way, and it's got a part number in there. It's a CS number, but it's a 3206. I'll pull that off, quickly look at it. Don't want to make this video too long. So quality, man, quality. But there's some nicks and stuff in here. Look at the nicks and dings and scratches and nicks. So that's a CS 3206. Kind of neat. And then over here you got your bronze piece. I mean, what tool you buy today has bronze and brass pieces on it? It's all plastic now. White metal, plastic. That's why I'm trying to save this saw. This saw was destined for the scrap heap. If it didn't come along to a person like me, I'm not saying I'm the only guy that can do this stuff. It was used for painting things. So there's yellow paint. There's a little dot of orange paint. There's some white. There's some pink over here. There's silver on the corner over here. So we'll get a wire brush. We'll paint it. This piece here, I had a hammer out with the dead blow hammer last time I was here. The grease. I think what happens is grease turns to like a gum, like sticky gum, as it gets 40, 50, 60, 80 years old. So wire, I used brake cleaner, and I wire brushed it, and then what happened is probably this set screw got loose and got this pin here rotated around and got tightened somewhere, like right here. See the big gouge in there? So the set screw left a big burr right there. That was hard. That was the reason it was hard to get apart. But when I did get it off, I saw that burr, I filed it, and it just slipped right out like nothing right after that. So look at that. Look at this little tiny 8-inch table saw. Get this great big, it's got to be 1.1/8 pin. So that's going to be fine. We don't have to do any repairs or anything. There's no wear on this saw that I can see so far. Yeah, so, and I can actually see, because this pulley's broken right here, I can see the bearing in there. I can't see a number so much. I guess if I looked hard enough, I could probably see a part number or a bearing number. But there it is. We may be able to resave those bearings, reuse them. Like, not reuse them, but like keep using them. Not reusing anything. We're just got what we got here. And does that look like brass? That must be the outer race. Anyway, I think we're going to be able to use those bearings for now. I think if I hook up a motor and just spin this for half an hour, it'll chew up that grease, soften it up. And then maybe I use my needle tip for my grease gun with a needle, and you can get in there, and if I pull this, I got to change this pulley, obviously, it's broken. So get in there with a needle greaser and pump some grease in. Maybe I'll pull the whole bearing, I don't want to destroy the bearings trying to get it apart, but look at the rust there. That's all coming out of the, that's what's coming out of the inners there. So that's just, what I might do is put it back in the pail of oil before I leave, because if I give it another week or two, now that we're moving around and agitating it, all that old grease will get dissolved and the rust might start flowing out of there, and it's just going to be a lot easier to pull apart. Yeah, so that's the plan. Now, you know what I noticed today was this pivot point right here. I just assumed these were in line with each other, not in line at all. Look at this. So I got to do a little more research. That may have had some sort of offset pin. I don't know how that would have worked. For the motor to come up on a bit of an angle or something. I don't know. This thing here tilts with the motor, with the arbor, as you rotate your arbor around. This makes the motor slide back and forth. So the motors don't actually tilt, but they slide left to right to keep keep the belt lined up enough that it doesn't jump off the pulley, I guess. And then the tension for the belt is like a modern table saw. It's on this pivot point. So back then, you had about 3 different types of table saws. You had table saws that didn't have a tilting arbor at all. You had table saws where the tabletop tilted. And then you had table saws like this, that the motor kind of slid left to right and twisted. So the pulley for the motor will stay perfectly vertical, and the arbor kind of goes up on up to a 45-degree angle. But then this compensates for the belt. Anyway, it's interesting. The Teco is the same as that. We can go look at that. So I'm going to get some hammer tone paint. We're going to can't really see. But you can see the hammer tone on here. That's hammer tone. Kind of like a Kennedy toolbox. I saw a table saw online. There's very little information on these Beaver table saws, because I think they were only made in Canada. So a Rockwell, I believe, bought out Beaver at one point, maybe in the 1960s or 70s. I don't know. I don't know at all. It's really hard to find information. So when they did buy them out, the table saws for a little while were called Beaver Rockwell, or Rockwell Beaver, or something like that. So you see them for sale once in a while, and they're probably they just kept making, they allowed Beaver to keep making table saws, but they slapped that Delta Rockwell name somewhere in there. So I saw one of these, and someone had polished this thing up. This was painted. I think when I pulled this off, you can see rust behind it. I was hoping there was going to be fresh paint that had never been seen in daylight, and I can get a color match or something, but no such thing. So I saw one of these polished up beautifully, and then the numbers and this area here was painted, I think. I have to look at that picture again. I plan to do that, maybe, if I have time. So I'm shopping for a motor. I gotta try and figure out why this pivot point doesn't line up with each other. You can see this one's over here, and that one's further forward. So if I run a 1/2 inch, but it's not, you can't run a 1/2 inch pin right through the two of them. Weird. So I'll try and find some pictures on the internet how that worked. It's kind of baffling. I think probably the mounting plate, the motor plate, had 2 tabs, and there was 2 pins, and the motor actually tilts on a bit of an angle. I don't know. It's just kind of mind-boggling, but that's my best guess. Leave a comment on what you guys think it might have worked, how that worked. But the plan is to get this one up and running and use it, because it's such a nice saw. It's really, really nice. Like, it's well made. There's also a broken piece up here, which I can't figure out what that did. But it has a nut up in here. So see, there's a nut over here. There's a bolt. So the same thing over here. There's a bolt. Goes up in there. So don't quite understand what this would have done. Where would it go? What would it do? Anyway, mystery. Let's go look at the Teco quick. Okay, here it is. Now the Teco, it's kind of a neat system. All your controls are at the front. So you got your locking knob is this chrome one. The green one is your raise and lowers your blade. And then the red one back here tilts the arbor. And then allows the motor to slide back and forth. It's got to put some force into it. The best way to do this is actually grab the motor and tilt it. Slide it over with your hand. See how the belt twists? So that Beaver would have been the same kind of setup. Similar setup. So the motor plate, see, it's got this groove section here for this bar that runs off that. It runs off this mechanism. A complicated setup. There's 2 trunnions on this, but they're not like a normal table saw. Trunnions aren't in front and behind the blade. One's up here. Usually there's one back here. There's nothing back here. The second one's out here. So runs on those 2. There's 2 like I don't know, they're not ball bearings, but they're like pivot point. Some sort of little roller. One roller over here and one over here. And the front is cast iron. This whole front section is cast iron. This side is sheet metal. So, interesting. Anyway, I thought I would show you guys. Oh yeah, one last thing. This motor runs backwards. It doesn't run backwards. It runs the wrong direction. It's running the right direction for the motor, but this setup, there's no terminals to change the direction of the motor. I don't think. I don't see any other. So I think we're kind of on a dead end with this motor. Don't think we can run it the other way. There's all the information on it. It's a 1/3 horsepower on top of that, and it spins at 1725, which kind of for a table saw you want it at 3450, but it's underpowered, turning the wrong way, and we can't change the direction. So I'm looking for a motor. Let's just say I'm looking, but I don't want to spend $100 on a motor. But it is a good motor. It runs fine. Someone was using this saw, feeding the wood through the back of the table saw. was running it backwards, which is kind of crazy to me, but I guess you just had to do what you got to do. I mean, that motor was probably put on there 40, 50 years ago. So it's probably going to go up for sale. It doesn't really need any work done to it. I don't think it needs too much. So it's in very good shape. 3 bolts holding on there. 1, 2, 3. That's the only thing I took apart on this so far is those 3 bolts. I've been squirting oil in these areas here, trying to get everything lubed up and working pretty smoothly. It's well made, I have to say. Look at that worm gear. Smooth, nice. All cast iron. Yeah. Teco Master. There's that indicator's way off. When it's at 0, it's probably there's a pencil mark. I'll show you. Okay, you see that pencil mark there on the 2 degree right there? I think that's 90 degrees. That's what that mark is there for. So it's easy to fix that. You just gotta loosen up these screws here and probably twist. Just make an adjustment with this little metal plate right here. Is there 2 screws holding? Yeah, there's 2. Just reef it over to the right position and until you get it right. We'll put it at 45. I bet you there's another pencil mark there. A couple of pencil marks there, but you get the idea. It's been off since, I don't know when. Probably since the day it left the factory. So maybe it was never adjusted in the first place. Anyway, we'll fix that. We'll get to that. I like the stand for it. I was going to actually cut it up and put it in the wood pile to burn, but I think what I'm going to do is trim it down. It's too big. We're going to trim the edges off and trim this board here. This just sits right on top there with 3 bolts. 3 or 4 bolts. Yeah, 4. These carriage bolts. Well, there you go. That's all. So the next update, maybe we'll have this thing, one of these 2 saws running. So thanks for watching.